She walked into the restaurant, dressed in high-end clothes and jewelry that sparkled under the lights. As soon as she was seated, her tone shifted. When the waiter politely approached to take her order, she scoffed and rolled her eyes. Every word she said was laced with disdain, loud enough for other diners to hear. But what this wealthy woman didn't know was that her arrogance was about to come crashing down in the most shocking way. You'll never believe what happened next. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. As Alex returned to the kitchen to place her order, the woman leaned back in her chair, casting a glance around the room. She didn't hide her impatience. When another waiter passed by with a tray of drinks for another table, she called out, "Is it always this slow in here?" The other waiter, startled by the abruptness of her tone, simply nodded and said, "I'll check on it for you." Back in the kitchen, Alex had a moment to collect himself. It wasn't the first time he'd dealt with someone who spoke down to him, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But something about this particular interaction lingered in his mind. It wasn't just that she was rude. It was that she seemed to relish putting others down. The restaurant's head chef, a tall, no-nonsense woman named Maria, saw the look on Alex's face as he handed her the order slip. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice calm but concerned. Alex shrugged and offered a small smile. "Just another tough table. No big deal." Maria raised an eyebrow. "If anyone's giving you trouble, just let me know." "Thanks, but it's fine," Alex said, his tone reassuring. Still, as he stepped out of the kitchen to attend to his other tables, he couldn't help but glance over at the woman's table. She was sitting there, scrolling through her phone, occasionally looking up with a frown as if daring someone to come over and tell her something she didn't want to hear. The tension was subtle, but it was building. Other diners had started to notice her loud sighs and the way she rolled her eyes when a server passed by without stopping. A couple, seated a few tables away, whispered to each other, their eyes darting in her direction. A middle-aged man at another table shook his head slightly, as if silently disapproving of her behavior. Despite this, Alex continued to focus on doing his job. He greeted new guests, refilled drinks, and ensured his other tables were well taken care of. His calm professionalism stood in stark contrast to her growing impatience. When Alex brought her appetizer to the table, she didn't even look up from her phone. She simply waved a hand dismissively as if to say, "Just put it down." Alex set the plate down carefully, smiled, and said, "Please let me know if there's anything else I can do for you." She glanced at him then, briefly, and said, "Just make sure the main course isn't cold." Alex nodded and walked away, his back straight, his demeanor unshaken. He knew that responding with kindness and professionalism was the best way to handle customers like her. Still, he couldn't ignore the feeling that something about this encounter was different, that it was leading to something he hadn't anticipated. As the evening wore on, the tension at the wealthy woman's table grew more and more palpable. It started when Alex delivered her main course. The plate was arranged perfectly, with every detail exactly as the kitchen had prepared it. But as soon as she saw it, the woman frowned. She tilted her head, made a face, and pushed the plate away without even tasting the food. "This is not what I ordered," she announced loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Alex, ever composed, stepped closer and offered a solution. "I'm so sorry about that, ma'am. Let me double-check your order and get this fixed for you." But the woman wasn't interested in listening. She sighed dramatically and waved him off. "What's the point if no one can do their job right?" she said, turning to her dining companion, who shifted uncomfortably in their seat. "I should have known this place would be overrated." Nearby diners were starting to notice. A couple at the next table exchanged looks of disbelief, whispering quietly about the woman's outburst. A family, a few tables away, enjoying their dinner, paused their conversation as the woman continued to voice her dissatisfaction. Even the staff behind the bar glanced in her direction, silently wondering how Alex would handle the situation. Alex, meanwhile, stayed calm. He returned to the kitchen to explain the situation to Maria, the head chef. "She says it's not what she ordered," he said, handing over the untouched plate. Maria frowned and reviewed the original ticket. "This is exactly what she asked for," she said. "I don't understand. Did she mention anything specific that was wrong?" "No," Alex replied. "She just wasn't happy. But I think we should remake it anyway. She's clearly upset, and I want to make sure we give her the best experience possible." Maria nodded. "I'll have the team redo it. Hang in there, Alex." While waiting for the new dish, Alex continued serving his other tables. Despite the situation, he kept his professional demeanor, smiling and engaging with his guests as though nothing was amiss. But in the back of his mind, the woman's attitude lingered. When the fresh plate was ready, Alex carried it carefully back to her table. "Here's your dish, freshly prepared. I hope it's to your liking," he said, setting it down gently. The woman barely glanced at it before letting out another loud sigh. "We'll see," she muttered. Her companion tried to lighten the mood. "It looks delicious," they said. But the woman ignored them, picking at the food with a look of disdain. A few moments later, she pushed the plate away again. "No, this still isn't right," she said, her voice sharper this time. "Do you not know how to follow instructions?" This time, the nearby tables went quiet. All eyes turned to her. The couple who had been whispering before now openly stared, and a few other diners exchanged puzzled and disapproving looks. Even the bartender paused mid-pour to glance at her table. Alex stood there, his expression unchanged. "I'm very sorry to hear that, ma'am," he said. "Would you like me to bring out something else entirely?" She threw her hands up. "What's the point? If you can't get this right, I doubt you'll do any better with something else." Alex nodded respectfully. "I understand. Let me speak with my manager and see how we can make this right for you." As Alex walked toward the kitchen, the murmurs among the other diners grew louder. People were clearly uncomfortable with her behavior. One man at a nearby table whispered to his wife, "Why is she being so rude to him?" Another diner quietly said to their friend, "He's handling it so well, though. You have to admire his patience." In the kitchen, Alex approached the general manager, a calm and composed man named David. "She's still not happy with the dish," Alex said, "and now she's saying I can't follow instructions." David sighed and placed a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. "You're doing fine. Let me handle this." David walked out into the dining area, his calm demeanor radiating authority. He approached the woman's table and introduced himself. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm the general manager. I understand there's been an issue with your meal." The woman looked up at him, her expression annoyed. "Yes, there's an issue. This waiter doesn't seem to know what he's doing. I've sent the dish back twice, and it's still wrong. I expected better service at a place like this." David nodded and listened carefully. "I see. Could you tell me exactly what's not meeting your expectations so we can address it?" "It's just not right," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "The presentation, the temperature, the taste, it's all off. I don't understand how you can call this fine dining." David smiled politely. "I'm sorry to hear that. I assure you, we take all guest feedback seriously. If you'll allow me, I'll personally oversee the preparation of a new dish for you." She smirked, as if she had won the argument. "Well, someone needs to take charge around here." David inclined his head. "I'll be back shortly." As he walked away, the woman's smug expression remained. But little did she know the situation was about to take a surprising turn. The other diners, still watching, whispered among themselves, their curiosity piqued by the calm yet firm response of the manager. Alex continued to serve his other tables, his professionalism unwavering. He knew that some customers were more challenging than others, and he took pride in handling the situation gracefully. Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Something about the way the woman dismissed him so easily lingered in his thoughts. Back in the kitchen, David spoke with Maria. "Let's make the dish exactly as requested. I want to make sure she has no reason to complain this time," he said. Maria nodded. "I'll take care of it personally." While the new dish was being prepared, David checked on other tables, ensuring that all guests were satisfied. Many of them took the opportunity to quietly compliment him on how he was handling the difficult customer. When the freshly prepared dish was ready, David personally brought it out to the woman's table. "Here you go, ma'am," he said with a courteous smile. "I hope this meets your expectations." She looked at it skeptically, took a small bite, and then nodded slightly. "It's fine," she said, as if granting permission for the meal to be acceptable. David thanked her and walked away, leaving the woman to her meal. She seemed pleased, at least for the moment, and the tension in the dining room began to ease. Diners returned to their conversations, though some continued to exchange glances and quiet remarks about what had just unfolded. Alex carried on with his duties, grateful for David's support. He knew that this incident would be something he'd think about for a long time, not because of the stress it caused, but because of the calm and composed way it was handled. In the end, the woman's actions had been met not with anger or frustration, but with professionalism and poise, and while she may have left feeling that her complaints were justified, the rest of the restaurant left with a new appreciation for the staff's dedication to quality service, even in the face of unnecessary rudeness. As the woman finished picking at her meal, still unsatisfied despite the manager's careful intervention, the atmosphere in the dining room shifted. The quiet murmurs and occasional glances in her direction were more noticeable now, creating a subtle but growing sense of tension. Alex continued his duties, calmly refilling drinks and taking new orders. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this table was heading toward a boiling point. The woman flagged him down again. "Excuse me," she said, in a tone that barely masked her impatience. "I need more water." Alex nodded, fetched a pitcher, and refilled her glass with steady hands. As he stepped away, she sighed audibly. "Finally," she muttered, loud enough for the diners nearby to hear. The couple seated at the next table exchanged glances, their discomfort written on their faces. One of them leaned in closer to the other and whispered, "She's been rude all night. It's embarrassing." When Alex returned a few minutes later to check on her, she looked up at him with a pointed glare. "You really need to learn how to handle customers," she said, her voice sharp. "I've been patient, but this whole experience has been unacceptable. I don't know how you keep your job." Other diners stopped mid-conversation, their attention drawn to her escalating complaints. The room grew quieter as people waited to see how Alex would respond. Maintaining his calm demeanor, Alex replied, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm doing my best to ensure you have a pleasant experience. If there's anything I can do differently, please let me know." His polite response seemed to irritate her further. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and said, "It's not just about the food. It's the service. Everything about this place is overrated. I expected so much more from a restaurant like this." At that moment, David, the general manager, reappeared. He had been observing the situation from a distance and decided it was time to step in again. He walked to her table with a calm, professional demeanor. "Is there something we can do to make your experience more enjoyable?" he asked, his tone measured. The woman smirked and waved her hand dismissively. It's too late for that. I've had enough of this place. Your waiter clearly isn't up to the standard of a fine dining establishment. David nodded thoughtfully. I understand your concerns, ma'am. However, I must respectfully disagree with your assessment of our staff. Alex has been with us for years and has consistently received praise for his professionalism and excellent service. Her expression faltered for a brief moment before she scoffed. Well, you might think he's great, but I certainly don't. And if this is what you consider good service, I won't be coming back. David remained composed, his voice steady as he replied, I'm sorry to hear that. Our goal is to provide every guest with a positive experience. If we've fallen short, I sincerely apologize. That said, we also believe in treating all of our employees with respect. Alex has done his best tonight, and I stand by him. The room was silent now. Diners looked on, some nodding subtly in agreement with David's words. The woman opened her mouth as if to respond, but she hesitated. Perhaps she noticed the way other customers were watching, or perhaps she simply realized she wasn't going to get the reaction she wanted. Instead, she reached for her purse, pulled out her wallet, and threw some cash on the table. Fine, she said, her voice colder now. I'm leaving. This whole place is ridiculous. David watched as she stood up and walked briskly toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. The tension in the room seemed to dissipate as soon as she was gone. Conversations slowly resumed, and a few guests even offered Alex small nods of encouragement as he went about clearing the table. Later that night, as the staff cleaned up and prepared to close, David called Alex over. You handled that well, he said. It's not easy to deal with someone like that, but you kept your composure. Alex shrugged. It's part of the job, I guess. I just try to stay professional. David smiled. And that's exactly why we appreciate you here. People notice how you carry yourself, even when things get difficult. In the end, the confrontation wasn't just about a difficult customer. It became a reminder of how grace under pressure can make all the difference. Alex's calm demeanor and David's steady leadership set the tone for the restaurant, showing that even in the face of unfair criticism, professionalism and respect can prevail. As Alex cleaned up the table where the woman had sat, he noticed a handwritten note tucked under the stack of cash she'd left behind. It wasn't a thank you note. Far from it. Instead, it read, You need to find another job. You're not cut out for this. Alex stared at the note for a moment, then folded it and placed it in his pocket without saying a word. Meanwhile, David, the manager, was reviewing the evening's receipts in the back office. As he tallied up the day's numbers, he paused to reflect on the confrontation that had just unfolded. He couldn't help but wonder what made people behave that way, especially in a place designed to provide comfort and enjoyment. David prided himself on maintaining a positive atmosphere in the restaurant, and tonight had been a reminder of how challenging that goal could be. Later that week, something unexpected happened. Alex was going about his usual routine, greeting customers, serving tables, and maintaining his professional demeanor, when a familiar face walked through the door. It wasn't the rude woman from before, but someone who looked strikingly similar. Her younger brother, as it turned out. He approached Alex at the host stand, holding a business card in one hand. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you the waiter who served my sister last weekend?" Alex hesitated, unsure of what to expect. "Yes, that was me," he replied. The man nodded and extended the card. "I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I wanted to talk to you about what happened. My sister can be difficult, to say the least. I heard about how she acted that night, and I just wanted to apologize on behalf of my family." Alex took the card, glancing at the name and title printed on it. The man was a corporate executive at a well-known company in the city. Alex raised an eyebrow. "You don't need to apologize for her," he said. "It's part of the job." "No, it's not," the man said firmly. "You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of behavior. The truth is, she's been struggling lately, and I think she lashed out because she's dealing with a lot of personal issues. It doesn't excuse her actions, but I wanted you to know that we appreciate the way you handled yourself." Alex nodded, still unsure of what to say. "Thank you for telling me," he said. The man smiled faintly. "If you're ever looking for another opportunity, give me a call. I think someone with your professionalism would be a great fit in our company." Alex blinked in surprise. He hadn't been expecting that. "I appreciate the offer," he said. "I'll think about it." The man nodded again. "No pressure. Just keep up the great work." As he walked away, Alex stared at the business card in his hand, feeling a mix of emotions. He didn't know if he wanted to leave the restaurant, but the acknowledgement of his professionalism meant more than he could express. It was a reminder that his efforts didn't go unnoticed, even by people he'd never met before. When David heard about the interaction, he simply smiled. "I'm not surprised," he said. "You've got a way of handling people, Alex. It's a rare skill." In the end, the twist wasn't a dramatic upheaval or a shocking event. It was a quiet, meaningful moment that showed how far a little professionalism and kindness could go. Even in the face of rudeness, Alex's calm approach left a lasting impression, one that resonated far beyond the walls of the restaurant. Over the next few days, Alex found himself reflecting on what had happened. He hadn't expected the rude woman's behavior to lead to such a surprising encounter with her brother, nor had he anticipated being offered a potential new career opportunity. He wasn't sure if he would take it, but the gesture itself was enough to restore some of his faith in people. When Alex mentioned the incident to his co-workers, they were just as surprised as he was. "You mean her brother came back to apologize?" asked Maria, the head chef, as she stirred a pot of sauce in the kitchen. "That's something you don't hear every day." "Yeah," Alex said with a shrug. "It was strange, but also kind of nice. I guess it just goes to show that you never really know what's going on in someone's life." One of the line cooks chimed in. "Still, you handled it like a pro. A lot of people would have snapped, but you kept your cool. That's not easy." Alex smiled. "It's just part of the job. You learn to take it in stride." But the truth was, it wasn't just the job that had shaped his approach. Alex had always believed in treating others with respect, even when they didn't necessarily deserve it. His grandmother used to tell him, "Kindness doesn't cost you anything, but it can change everything." That wisdom stuck with him, and he tried to live by it every day. Meanwhile, the restaurant's regular customers began to notice something different. The once frequent outbursts from difficult guests seemed to diminish. Word spread among the staff that David, the manager, had made it a point to reinforce a positive, respectful environment for both employees and customers. He even posted a discreet sign near the entrance that read, "We believe in treating everyone with respect, guests and staff alike." For Alex, the experience was more than just a test of patience. It was a reminder that staying calm and professional, even in tough situations, could have unexpected ripple effects. While he still hadn't decided whether to take the job offer, he knew one thing for certain. He would carry this lesson with him no matter where he worked. He also realized that he wasn't alone. The support from his co-workers, the quiet nods of encouragement from other diners, and David's unwavering confidence in him all played a role in how he handled the confrontation. It was a team effort, even if it didn't seem like it at first. One evening, after the dinner rush had subsided, Alex sat down with David at the bar. The restaurant was quiet, the lights dimmed, and the sounds of clinking glasses and soft music filled the air. "David," Alex began, "I've been thinking about that night. About everything that happened." David looked at him, nodding for him to continue. "I guess I just wanted to say thank you," Alex said, "for having my back, for not letting her tear me down. It meant a lot." David smiled. "You're welcome, Alex. But honestly, you didn't need me. You handled that situation better than I ever could have. I just stepped in to support you. The rest was all you." Alex shook his head. "I don't know. I'm not sure I could have stayed calm if I didn't know you were there." "That's what a good team does," David said. "We look out for each other. And you, my friend, set an example for all of us. You showed everyone in this restaurant, staff and guests alike, that respect and professionalism are stronger than any rude customer." Those words stayed with Alex. He realized that the experience had not only tested his patience, but also reaffirmed his belief in the value of treating people with dignity. It was easy to lash out, to respond to rudeness with rudeness, but it took real strength to remain composed. As time went on, the memory of the rude woman faded, but the lessons she unintentionally taught lingered. Alex continued to serve his guests with the same level of care and professionalism. He earned more compliments from customers and received several positive online reviews that mentioned his calm demeanor and excellent service. The restaurant, too, benefited from the shift in energy. David's emphasis on respect and kindness became part of the restaurant's culture. The staff felt more supported, and customers seemed to respond positively to the welcoming environment. And while Alex never did find out what ultimately happened to the woman who had caused all the commotion, he didn't dwell on it. Instead, he focused on the present, on the guests he served, the team he worked with, and the values that had guided him through that challenging night. In the end, it wasn't just a story about a difficult customer. It was a story about resilience, about choosing kindness over conflict, and about the unexpected ways respect can transform a situation. For Alex, it wasn't just a lesson he learned, it was a principle he lived by every single day. In the end, it's not just about handling tough situations or dealing with difficult people. It's about standing firm in what you believe and staying true to your values, no matter the circumstances. It's about treating others with respect, even when they may not deserve it, because that's the kind of person you want to be. And that's exactly what Alex did. So what about you? How would you handle a situation like this? So, what about you? How would you handle a situation like this? Have you ever been in a moment where staying calm and respectful seemed impossible? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We've got plenty more incredible stories that will leave you thinking, reflecting, and maybe even changing the way you see the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for another story that matters.